So lovely. Thank you very much for attending this training webinar with the Financial Conduct Authority. It's a webinar with Ian Adley from the FCA and myself. So tonight we've got actually quite a number of people from the Football Supporters Association. So we've got Gareth, Jane, Andy and Richard. So give us a wave, guys, from the FSA. And then from the FCA, we've got Kaylee and Ian. In terms of breaks tonight, we're not going to be doing any breaks, so we're going to be going straight on to 7:30. If you do need to step away from the computer, just turn your camera off, make sure you're on mute, and skedaddle off to a break, whatever you need. Please feel free as well to use the chat function as much as possible, and do start telling us what trust you're from, how you're feeling tonight, and how much you're looking forward to this session with us in the FCA. We are delighted to welcome you, and please do ensure you've got notepads and pens or something to jot your notes and your thoughts down on. The main room is going to be for presenters only, so for me and Ian, just to go through our presentation and some notes to you, and then we are going to be sending you out into breakout rooms. So when that happens, I'll open the breakout rooms and you'll see a small screen on screen, and you'll just be able to click on that and go to room 8 or go to room 7, whichever one you are allocated to. If you get lost somewhere in cyberspace, please let me know. Mobile phones, please just unless you're on your mobile phone, please just keep them on silent as best as possible, and keep your focus on us for the full hour and a half. Individuals, as mentioned in the registration information that we sent out, individual issues for trust won't be dealt with. We will be generally talking, and I think based on some of the questions we've already got through the registration, we've covered off most people's issues. We will spend 10 minutes at the end. If anybody's struggling or thinks that they have a very specific issue, we will try to help you at the end. But during the main bulk of the session, we won't be dealing with those individual issues. The session is being recorded, and we do hope to use most of the session in order to help other people that might not have been able to join tonight. If you want your camera on, you totally can, but it's not obligatory. But we do want you to interact as much as possible, and we have tried to make this as interactive as possible. So please do talk to us in the chat. Please say hello. I love seeing people's faces and stuff, particularly because we haven't been able to see anybody for so long. So if you want to keep your camera on, that's cool. In terms of the sort of breakout room session, sometimes it can feel a bit weird in the breakout rooms and nobody wants to talk at once. But once you're in your breakout room, just take yourself off mute and start a conversation. If you naturally shy away, then maybe push yourself forward a bit more. If you're naturally one of the more go-getters, maybe hold back a bit, sort of test control and see how that feels. But we're really looking forward to sort of seeing how you do in your breakout rooms, and sort of getting to know different people and being able to see how other trusts are working. But as I say, if there's any questions, then just let us know. My colleague Richard is going to be just monitoring the chat for questions, so he'll be working with me and Ian tonight on that. So in terms of the FSA, I just wanted to give everybody a few different highlights. Most people might know this, but we have 358 member groups, 209 are affiliates, so all trusts are affiliate members. There's 38 supporter-owned clubs, and over 5 million has been reinvested back into the game, and we have over 6 fan-elected directors at a number of different clubs now. So, you know, you really are part of a national movement, and we are really delighted to have you on board with us tonight, and you guys make this movement what it is. In terms of the FCA, I just wanted to throw over to Ian just to talk through about the FCA.
Thank you. So, I'm Ian Adderley. I work in the mutuals team at the FCA. We've got responsibility for the registering authority function under the Cooperative and Community Benefit Societies Act, which I know most of you are registered under. That function's distinct from the rest of the Financial Conduct Authority. So the Financial Conduct Authority's objectives around consumer protection and market integrity and supporting competition interest of consumers, those things don't apply to this function, but we do try and deliver the mutuals function to maintain public confidence in it and the different sorts of forms that mutual societies can take.
Thanks, Ian. So in terms of the aims of the session, we really wanted to try to maintain and encourage compliance. We know loads of you do really good work and are really diligent about all your FCA requirements. We also just wanted to share an update on knowledge and practices and procedures and give you all a chance to chat about this specific topic. We would like at the end of the session to sort of really encourage people to think about their handovers and how newly appointed board members are given a handover, and how you sort of maintain that kind of information legacy for your supporters trust, and also just generally to answer any questions that you might have. We did kindly with Ian and Kaylee run 2 focus groups as well, and some of the information that we gathered from there really just set this session up. So we feel that hopefully it will be really beneficial to everybody on the call. In terms of the agenda, so a loose agenda, and we've tried, like I said, we've tried to make it as interactive as possible, is looking at the FCA role with under the Act, summaries of obligations and processes for all the supporters trusts, making sure that you understand about the mutual society portal, any sort of issues around COVID, and then some compliance and FCA powers. We've also got an absolute load of resources at the end of this presentation, so we'll be able to send you a lot of information afterwards.
Welcome back, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the discussions in the breakout room. Do put your comments and thoughts in the chat bar as well. We'll be reading through those. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the FCA's role under the Cooperative and Community Benefit Societies Act. As I said at the start, we're the registering authority, and this role is different from our role in financial services. In that sense, we don't regulate societies in the way that financial services firms are regulated. We're not involved in looking at the financial soundness or the conduct in that sense. Instead, the way we frame it is saying societies are regulated by the Cooperative and Community Benefit Societies Act 2014, and we have certain roles under that piece of legislation in terms of reviewing applications that come in for registration, for amendments to the rules, your governing document, for different types of resolutions, whether it's a resolution to transfer engagements or to amalgamate with another society. And we also have powers to take action where societies don't comply with the legislation that they're registered under. So we've got a range of powers there. There's also some important things that we don't do. So we don't have a role in terms of giving individual advice or individual guidance. There are about 9,500 societies registered under different pieces of legislation, just over 8,000 also under this piece of legislation. So it's not our role to give advice on how to set up or run a society. We publish guidance, which I'll come on to later. But that's really the role of people like the FSA to help you set up a society. We also don't give feedback on individual governing arrangements and individual issues within societies. So we won't review those and give feedback or give comments on them. What we will do is look at the rules and say whether the rules meet the requirements of the legislation or not. And we're barred essentially from getting involved in disputes between members or members and the society and its members, that kind of thing. We don't have a role to play in that. The rules will govern some of that relationship, and that's not something that we would then step into. So we would steer clear of those sort of things. There are a number of ways in which you might need to interact with us. Because there are a series of obligations and processes that societies can or need to follow. When societies are registered, each society is registered to meet one of 2 conditions for registration. One condition is that you're a cooperative society, or the other condition is that you are a community benefit society, so you're conducting your business for the benefit of the community. Those things apply at the point of registration, but they also apply forever after. So once you're registered, you need to continue to meet those conditions for registration. Societies must have at least 3 members to register with us, and societies can't drop below that. I know in your case, your societies tend to have lots of members, so that's not normally an issue, but you must always have at least 3 members. And then there are certain things that are registered with us that are really important, like your address. So you have to tell us if you've changed your registered office address. You submit a form to us and we register that, and that's effective once we register it. The same if you want to change your financial year end. That again has to be recorded by us. We will check your annual return against that financial year end, for instance. And then there are some things that you have to do that we don't necessarily look at. So you have to maintain a register of members. That's not something you send to us, and that's not something we look at, but that's something as a society, you have to have a register of who are your members, how many shares do they have, what's their name, what's their address, if they've given their email address, that kind of thing. And then lastly, submitting or maintaining accounts, and then submitting those accounts to us along with an annual return. And as I've said, it's really important those things are notified to us. Lots of things can go wrong where the address hasn't been notified to us, or the right set of rules aren't being used. In terms of summary of the different processes and obligations, so this is in chapter 8 of the guidance, and the link's in the chat for people. So do have a look at that guidance, and do save that and keep going back to that. It's not something you need to read from cover to cover in one go, but it's something to dip in and out of when you've got specific questions or you need to look up specific things. But these are a list of the sort of processes where you'll need to engage with us and register something with us. And as we've said, it's really important that those things are registered with us. There's two different impacts. There's a very practical impact. If you've not changed your address with us, we will only write to you at your registered office address. So you might miss important notifications. But also, if rules aren't registered with us, they're not legally effective. The only set of rules that are legally binding are the ones that you've registered with us. So it's really important that those processes are followed.
So we just wanted to set you a little task where possible. So this is a bit of a solo task. So one of the staff members, the FSA staff members, is about to post the link to the mutuals register. So we ideally just want you to go into that website and find your society by the society name or registration number, and then just double check some of the information. So double check that your registered address is correct, or and double check when was the last time you did a whole rule amendment. And then just ask yourselves as you're doing this, how often do you check this page? Do you have a system as a trust where you do it quite often, or is this page completely new to you? So just for the next 3 minutes or so, just feel free to click onto the website and double check some of that information. I use this website an awful lot, actually. I do double check lots of different bits of information. It's always interesting, always helpful. And feel free as well in the chat to let us know if you are familiar with it, how often you use it. Is it just one person from your trust that uses it? I'd love to sort of get an understanding. So one of our trust, Mariners Trust, is the rep there is saying that it's been used an awful lot, and continuing to do so as best as possible. So that's great. So it's good, Ian, would you say it's good to just like get into a regular system? So, if people are struggling, maybe set a reminder or a diary entry, or what's the best? Would you have any top tips?
Yes, I think there's a few different uses for people. I think we've, over the last few years, we've also been digitising all of our paper records. So for any particularly long-standing societies, those records from pre-2013 that were previously only on paper should now be on the public register as well. So it gives you a really good overview of the history of your organisation in terms of annual returns, rule amendments, and that kind of thing. So if you're a new secretary coming to a long-standing society, this will be the definitive place to go to, where you say which document is our current set of rules. We'll go to the mutuals public register. That's the definitive answer. Anything else you're given, if it's not registered with us, isn't the definitive set. I think I think whenever there are sort of changes, so I think use it to sort of verify information. So if you've been told that the annual returns are up to date, well, actually have a look at the register. Can you see them there? Is the address the right address? Are there any documents or any things you've done, like recording a charge over an asset or anything like that? Is there anything around that needs to be double checked? So I think if you've got like an annual kind of audit check, and it's taken 2 or 3 minutes once a year just to check in to make sure those things are right, I think would be good practice. And likewise, I think if there are any significant events, if you own if you're moving into a new stadium, for instance, well, there's a lot going on there, but actually, has someone remembered to update the address with us when we write to you?
Mm-hmm. Lovely. And there's some great things coming in on the chat as well. So, looking at the website when I submit my returns and then monitoring it until it shows as progress. So we're just about to go into some bits and pieces in terms of registering and using more of the kind of tools that the FCA have. But it's just interesting to kind of see what everybody else is doing. So if you've looked at this and thought, oh, do you know what, I don't use this enough, just jot it down as a note and make sure that you are sharing it with other people, and it's a collective responsibility that other board members will come and look at this too, as a point of information. And that's one of the asks that we would have after this session. So in terms of the next thing, we're just going to put up another short poll. So this one is about the registering for the FCA portal. So I'm just going to launch it now. So if you could just fill that in for us. So is your trust registered to the FCA Mutuals portal? And then if so, how many board members are registered? So it's just something that we asked on the focus groups. And I think the FCA and the FSA were keen to understand how people were using this. So at the minute, 90% of people are using it. We've still got a number of people left to answer. Ian, ideally, we would be encouraging more people to use the portal. Is that right?
Yeah, I think for us, we're really encouraging the portal use. I think we've seen a lot of increase over this last year in particular. We're very much encouraging filing things electronically with us. And I think the portal just gives you a sort of reference point. What applications have we submitted? Once you're logged in, it's very easy to submit a change of address. That'll get processed quickly, or to submit your return. And we'll touch upon some of those things in the next discussion. But I think making sure you're set up, because it also gives you things like email reminders about when to submit your returns. So any new secretary, board members, that kind of thing that want to get registered, that's a really good first step.
Lovely. So there's a couple more people left to answer, but so far 79% of people say yes, they've used it. Some are not sure, so this next section will be really good for them. And then 77% of people say one person is registered for the portal. So that is something that we are about to come on to. So over to you, Ian.
Yes, as I mentioned, you can register on the portal. That includes for things like submitting your annual returns and accounts each year, changing your financial year end, changing your address, submitting a whole range of other sorts of applications with us. And it should be sort of quick and simple to use. We've got about 6,500 users registered on the portal so far. So a lot of people have found it relatively straightforward. I think if I talk you through the process for registering on the portal, there's two separate things. It's really interesting seeing the results of that poll. I think there's two separate things. So the first thing is you register your own account. You register your own username. That's unique to you as a person. So you put in your email address, create your username like you would with any other website. And it does the usual thing of asking you to verify your email address to make sure that's typed in correctly and that kind of thing. That's then your account for the portal. That's your user account for the portal that you log into with your username and password. Once you've done that, there's then the second step of associating with their society. Some people we know are involved in lots of different societies, other people are just involved in one, but you complete the process of associating with a society. Once you've done that, you don't have to do it once, you have to do that each time. That process, you tell the portal which society you want to associate with. That then will send a letter to the registered office address of the society. So coming back to the importance of that address being correct, that will send a letter to that address, which will have a passcode, a one-time passcode, some letters and numbers. And once you get that letter, or the secretary gets that letter, they need to give that to you or give the code to you. You go back into the portal, you type in that code, that associates you with the society then. And I say, once you've done that, that's done. You're linked to that society. That's a really important step to make sure that only those people that should be associated with the society are associated with it. And the one bit of contact information every society has to provide us with is the registered office address, which is why we send it out by post. The letter is, to pick up one of the questions from the chat, the letter is addressed to, it'll just say secretary on the address and the registered office. And in that letter, it'll then say this person has requested to be associated with your society. If this is a valid request, please provide them with this passcode. On the basis that person should know who you are and be able to verify that you should have that. With the portal, you can then have up to 5 people associated with any society. So, you know, in the poll earlier, said most societies have got 1 user registered, and that's good. But I think one of the things we're encouraging is having a few people registered per society. That's a few people getting email reminders about annual return submission. It deals with situations if that person's off sick, for instance, and they're the only person with access. It's better to get access when you're not in a hurry, because the post has to go out. So, you know, get the access when you're not in a hurry. You have the treasurer, secretary, a couple of board members, or whoever is involved with the society. Have up to 5 of them linked to the society, and that gives you the cover. You can see who else is associated with that society, and it also deals with those unfortunate situations where if someone's lost a heavily contested election for the board and is still on the portal, if they're your only user, you've got someone who's no longer a director linked to that society, we can remove them, but actually having other people on the portal to manage that is really useful. To give you an example of the portal for those that haven't used it, once you're logged in, so this is an example of a change of registered office form. Just to show you the sort of navigation more normally. So on the left-hand side, you've got your main menu, which is home, users, submissions, and documents. So that will show you all of the submissions your society has made to the portal. The documents tab will show you your documents from the Mutuals Public Register. So that's your public documents. The users tab will show you who else is linked to that society. And obviously the home tab takes you back to the home page. That's where you get the drop-down menu of forms. You can save a form at any point and come back to it. And you can navigate to the form either on the left, when you'll get ticks or crosses next to the, so you've got about this form, you've got new address. Those will tick or cross if they're complete or not. Only once it's fully completed will the submit button appear able to click on. If at any point you've saved your application, if you go to your submissions tab, you can then download your application. So say if, for instance, you're filling in the annual return form, which has got a series of questions, and you want to just check your answers with another board member. You might want to check with the chair whether they're happy with the answers that you're giving. You can download the application, email it to them, say, this is what I'm about to submit. Are you happy with it? Go back in, continue the application from where you left off. You'll find that under the submissions tab. One of the important things and one of the main benefits for the annual return is once you do your second annual return in the portal, at the bottom of that screen where we've got the previous and next button, a button will appear that says use previous submission. And that will populate all of the fields of the annual return form with what you submitted last time for you to then just go in and edit. It is really important you go and edit it and make sure that what you submit is accurate, but it saves you retyping some of the things that you might otherwise have to type in each year, which might stay the same. So that's a really important benefit for particularly where you're getting multiple submissions year on year. I saw someone asked a question earlier about financial year end not being correct. Again, through the portal, you can put in an application to change that financial year end.
Just building on that, Richard, is there any other questions at all that
are
coming?
Debs, yeah, just one actually, one very brief one, Ian, from Stephen at Exodus City. think you mentioned that there are email reminders about the annual return. Is that right? Because Stephen's saying that he's not seen one there. So
yeah, so people should get up to it's up to 3 reminders at different intervals, depending on when the financial year ends, and those should go to anyone who's got an account linked to that society. So they should get those emails. It's always worth double checking kind of spam folders and that kind of thing. I think different email providers are more quick to classify things as newsletters or this, that, and the other. So it's worth double checking those. But people should be getting those reminders when the financial year ends. I think it's about a month before, and then in the sort of final week if we've not had the annual return, to say that that's due, and that they go out automatically. So that's not a manual task on our part. That should be automated.
There's nothing that goes out by letter. It's all done by email.
Yeah, it's all done by email there.
Great, thanks, Ian.
If somebody is continuing just to have problems and they don't feel that they are receiving them, is it just a case of dropping you a note?
Yeah, I think getting in touch with us, it can often be any number of things. It can be, if the email address has got a space in it or something like that. It can be something as simple as that sometimes, or it can be something more problematic. So I think, get in touch with us. We can look into it. It's often quite a unique or bespoke issue rather than a more general one. But do get in touch with us. I think we've got the email address on the last slide when we get to that about how to contact us. Yeah,
no problem. And if anybody else has any other questions, Richard is monitoring the chat for the questions, so please do just throw them in. So are we all ready to move on to the next section, Ian? Any other final thoughts on the example, or?
I don't think so. I think that's covered most of the things on the portal. I should say as well, if anyone is involved in more than one society, you can still do that through your one user account. There's just a drop-down menu that lets you select which society you're submitting forms for. So that's useful for anyone that's involved in more than one.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we're on to our next task. What we want to do, we're going to be putting you into breakout rooms again for slightly longer, 2 minutes longer, a 10-minute one this time round. And what we want you to consider and discuss is your handovers as a trust. So 10 minutes to just think about why handovers might be important, how you introduce and welcome new board members into the fold once they get elected, whether or not you have a set process for this, and if not, is there a reason? Is it timing? Is it not knowing how to potentially do some of these things? So anything about handovers and storing information, and particularly ideally want you to share good practice in terms of any good practice that you do which maintains your organisational legacy and continues to train people as they come onto the board. So it's the same thing again. We'll be opening the breakout rooms. You'll see a screen pop up. Just say that you want to go to the breakout room that I'll put you in. If you get lost in cyberspace, just let me know. But I'll just open the rooms up now and enjoy the discussion. Welcome back. So I actually just wanted to invite you all to write some of the things that you were discussing in the chat if possible. So feel free to throw some of your top tips in the chat, and we will go through those in a second. There was a question actually from Roommate which I just thought might be helpful to share with everybody. So somebody was just asking, and I think it was Roommate, if Andy can nod wherever he is, that said, how quickly does somebody get the passcode from the FCA for the portal? So Ian, I just wondered if you could let people know that.
Yeah, sure. So I think once you've requested the passcode, that will normally be posted out the next working day. So it's sort of a few days really, however long the post takes. I think some of the post is a little bit slower at the moment, not in being sent out, but I think in getting to people. But yeah, usually within a few days. Okay,
lovely. So yeah, feel free to throw some comments in the chat. Really eager to sort of hear what you're kind of discussing in your breakout rooms. So Paul Stevens from Luton, no process in place for our induction or handover, but we feel we need one, so that's awesome. So Sam Payne's saying that has been discussed, and documents are stored, so that's great. So we're just seeing the way that different people are doing things. Grimsby, we don't have a handover at the minute. Straight in at the deep end. I love that, Christine. So this is just really to kind of generally understand from our point of view as a FSA staff, and I think from Ian and Katie's for the FCA, is just to sort of see how people are running, and to maybe signpost or encourage you to think about doing things in a different way, or reviewing what you're doing, in order so that everybody is working together as best as possible. Room 6 is saying the general feeling that induction of new board members is a very important subject, so that's great. Nothing in place but might need some pointers. So just on this, as more and more comments are coming through, I think that it's important that if you need support from one of your network managers, then please do come to us. I'm just actually the opportune moment to go on to the next slide. So the FSA, Nicola Cave, our colleague, she has built an absolute crazy load of templates and documents and stuff, so that supporters trust don't have to start from scratch. So there's so many different templates that you can use. So I just wanted to play a short video, so that if you were sat thinking, oh crikey, I don't know, like we need to do something, but I'm not quite sure what to do. On our website, there's a big fan resource section, fan group resource section. So I'm just going to play a short video to sort of show you where it is on the website. So the very end one of the end slide that I've rested on that video is all to do with the FCA and their portal user guidance. But there's so much information on there. You know, one of the first things we'd like you to do is, if you do have action steps from this webinar, is to just go on, explore the website. You know, I think Nicola would say that it's a new part of the website. So if you have any sort of feedback for us, or you know, feel that it could be more user friendly, then feel free to do share that with your network manager. But we do have so many things that you can use, so don't reinvent the wheel. We do try and help you with these things, and we're always looking for more ways to try to help. The other aspect of this as well is on our YouTube channel, and we have a number of different training videos. It will just give you sort of step-by-step guides on certain elements. So the two that I've put on the screen today are about accounts and series. So feel free to go onto our YouTube channel. A lot of them are under the Supporters Direct Archive playlist, if you wanted to go through the playlist, or use a search function and type in accounts or secretaries, trusts, whichever keyword, and a number of videos will come up. While you're on the YouTube channel though, if you're not subscribed, if you can subscribe, and if you can like any of our videos, I would really appreciate it. Love to have more people subscribed onto our channel, and we're trying to put content up where possible, especially training content. So I'm just going to double check the chat again. Actually, I just want to see if there's any more top tips from any of the other groups. So it seems as if we were looking at lots of people sort of just discussing what they can do potentially, or what they'll do off the back of this webinar. So that's great. Tony, Hector, Nicola Cave and Richard were working on new model rules for our organisation. The template is nearly ready, but Richard, I'm just going to put you on the spot here. Do you have an update for the group?
Yeah, I was just typing a response to Tony actually, but yeah, I'll tell everybody the FSA model rules for both supporters trusts and community-owned football clubs are actually with the FCA for approval right at this moment. So Ian's nodding there. So does that mean you've been looking at them, Ian?
It means they're with us.
So we are working on that. We are working on them, and we will be going. We'll be doing quite a lot of work to help cross transition over to the new rules as soon as we have them. So just watch this space. There's been a lot of hard work being done on them, so that they should be available shortly. There was just another question that I'd noticed in the chat actually that might just be helpful to cover off at the minute. In terms of what I've just shown you in this video, Don just asked a question about whether it's in a public section. It definitely is. The member section isn't there anymore on the website, so it's publicly available, and it's great. I've just noticed as well, I've just repeated myself because Gareth has also answered that in the chat, so thank you, Gareth.
Obviously, we know the last year has been an unusual one, I think, for everybody, and we know it's also been particularly challenging on societies, particularly in sport. There's been lots of changes as a result of COVID-19, and I think from last April onwards, we've been keen as an organisation to do what we can by way of forbearance and help and support to deal with the strange time we find ourselves in. So I think this takes a number of forms. First of all, we put out some forbearance around accepting electronic signatures, encouraging email submission, relaxing requirements around statutory declarations on rule amendments. So done a few things there to help ease the load on societies. We had a lot of questions about general meetings and annual general meetings. I think the thing to say is it's important that members can exercise the rights that they have and that those rights are facilitated and supported. But right from the start, we've been clear in saying that we wouldn't take action where a meeting's not been held in breach of requirement in order to comply with lockdown restrictions. We didn't want to see people breaching lockdown restrictions to hold meetings. But we have also said that societies where the rules facilitate it should look at virtual meetings. And I think, when we said that in last April, that was new to people. I think saying that this April, I think most people have attended many a Zoom call, Teams call, Skype call, etc. And I think our expectation would be people are able to do virtual meetings by and large. I think we expect people to take steps to meet their legal obligations as soon as reasonably practicable. And that will vary from one society to another, depending on its size, its resources, and that kind of thing. And of course, we kind of caveat all of that by saying the rules are a contract between the society and its members. There's nothing stopping members taking action against the society for a breach of those rules. Even if we say we won't take action, that doesn't stop anybody else. And I can see some of the comments in the chat. I think we've anecdotally heard sort of interesting feedback on virtual meetings. Some have said it's driven up attendance. Some have said it's same attendance but different crowd and that kind of thing. So we're seeing a real mix there.
Ian, could I ask another question as well? One of our trusts is asking whether it's possible to actually amend their rules so that their AGMs are held online in future and only online, I think is the implication there. Is that something that you could accept, or is that not something that you would approve?
So I think from our perspective, we'll accept any rules that are sort of compliant with the Cooperative and Community Benefit Societies Act. That's silent on the mode of meetings. I think our expectation would be that members can see and be seen and hear and be heard by each other. That there's two-way, that it's not just a broadcast. I think with those things taken into account, we've already seen societies in different sectors amending their rules to make provision for electronic platforms or virtual meetings, whether as a norm or whether as a hybrid, with a physical meeting at the same time. So we've seen, I think most societies are keeping their options open. I think I think with rules, you want them to cover different scenarios. I mean, a lot of people, I don't think anybody's rules directly anticipated a global pandemic. But a lot of rules are actually able to deal with it because they had enough flexibility within them. And I think a lot of rules are able to deal with virtual meetings without specifically referencing virtual meetings. They don't have to reference virtual meetings in order to have them. They just need to not say something that prevents it. If they say, it must be in the physical location of Leeds, then that's obviously more of a challenge. And if it just says, members will be notified of of the place of the meeting and that kind of thing. So I think what we're seeing here, the rules that weren't overly detailed on procedure, that still guaranteed members their rights, but weren't overly detailed on points of procedure, have tended to fare slightly better than some of those that went into a great deal of specificity that wasn't required.
Yes, so for, as far as our model rules are concerned, just to answer those questions in the chat there, it basically, they are silent on whether there are online meetings required, or whether that's something that you can or can't do. Therefore, it's acceptable, and also a hybrid also is acceptable as well, because again, it's not clear, or it's silent on that particular issue. So you can do those things.
Yeah, and I think it's the same with, it's possible to hold to poorly run a physical meeting in the same way it's possible to poorly run a virtual meeting, and vice versa. If you put the physical meeting at the top of a large number of stairs with no access and in a difficult location at a difficult time on a difficult night, then you're going to drive down attendance. I think you're expecting people to facilitate and encourage members attending, and to do whatever they can to maximise that participation in a sort of democratic way. I think with annual returns and accounts, again, the overarching thing is to take steps to submit them as soon as reasonably practicable. What we have said, and our position as it stands now, is we're committed to not taking any action where returns due by the end of April are late by 3 months or less. We're currently reviewing that position at the moment in terms of future forbearance, and we'll communicate that on our website and with the FSA and others when the decision's taken on that. But we've been very keen to be in the position of saying, if societies are taking steps to get the annual returns and accounts to us, we're not going to be jumping to take action where they're doing what they can. I think some of it is outside of society's control. If there's a delay with the audit, or the auditors have got a backlog, there's only a certain amount that societies can do, and we're providing societies are taking whatever steps they can, and as soon as reasonably practicable, we're keen to be supportive and have a common sense approach to that. Fundamentally, though, there are requirements to submit the annual returns and accounts, and it is important that they're there for the accountability, for members to see, for third parties to see, for us to see. So that is something we'll be following up, but as said, in a fairly kind of common sense way, taking into account the circumstances.
Okay, so we are going to go on to another poll. I just wanted to double check with Richard first. Was there any other questions?
No, I think we've dealt with that, Debs. Thanks very much.
Okay, no problem. So now we're going to play a game of true or false, which, I mean, when I used to play Call My Bluff, or if anybody knows that show, and I was absolutely terrible at doing this in person, so you should feel extremely thankful that we're not doing it in some kind of game show style while I have to say the statements, but you'll see 5 statements pop up. I just want you to say true, false, or unsure. So just bear with me, that you should be able to see them now. So you have to answer the first one before you can answer the rest of them, I think. But yeah, feel free to give us your thoughts. True, false, unsure. Ian, did you ever play Call My Bluff or anything similar?
I've thankfully been spared that. I don't think I'd be very good at it either.
No, I find it very difficult to have a straight face. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, it can be much easier virtually, isn't it? It's
yes,
right behind the screen.
Yeah, turn your video off quickly before people can see you laughing. So we will be sharing the results of these in a minute. I'm just interested to see. So some of the statements. So we've got the FCA prefer to encourage compliance before action. The FCA regulates supporters' trust. The FCA can take action if you don't submit your accounts or other documentation. We've got nearly everybody's answered and voted. The FCA is the long distance cousin of the FSA. It's an important one. Supporters' trust must ensure the FCA is kept up to date. Just a couple of more people left to vote. Sorry again if you're on a device where you can't see this and you can't join in the fun of poll taking. Right, I think we've got pretty much everybody. So let's see. Let's share the results and see what you said. So actually, I'm just going to throw it to you, Ian, and I'm going to say the statement, and then you can say if it's true or false. Okay. So the FCA prefers to encourage the compliance before they take action. So everybody thought that was 100%. Everybody said that was true.
Good. Yeah, so that's true. We're very much in the space of encouraging compliance. We'll always act reasonably and proportionately. So we'll ask for something before we demand it, type thing. So that's correct.
Lovely. Statement 2, the FCA regulates supporters' trust. So there's a bit of a split of opinion here. So 54% false, 36 true, and 10% unsure. So which one was it?
So it's technically false. So the majority got that. I can see why there's different opinions. I think it goes down to how one defines the word regulates. I think the approach we take is we don't regulate societies in the way that we'd regulate financial services firms or that kind of thing, and that societies are regulated by the legislation. But then we do have a role as a registrar, as a registering authority, to check compliance with that legislation, be able to see whether people are complying or not. So it makes sense that there was a variety of answers there.
Right. Okay, and then the next one, the FCA can take action if you do not submit accounts or other documentation. So 97% said that was true, and then we just had a couple that were false.
Yeah, so in terms of non-submission of annual returns and accounts, for instance, we prior to last year, each year we'd prosecute some societies in the Magistrates Court for non-submission of annual returns and accounts. That society was prosecuted in October for long-standing non-submission, and that can result in a fine up to £1,000 per non-submission. And we've also cancelled the registration of societies for non-submission of annual returns and accounts, which means you cease to exist as a legal person. So I think there's two things. One, it's really important to submit the annual returns and accounts. But two, going back to that first question, a prosecution letter won't be the first letter a society receives from us that have been either not responding or not responding very well over a series of communications before we got to that point.
Lovely. And then the supporters trust must ensure the FCA is kept up to date with detail as possible. So 87% of people felt that was true. 13% said it was false. So could you reveal the answer for me?
Yeah, so it's true. I think if it's things like a change of address, financial year, rule changes, that kind of stuff has to come to us. Obviously, there'll be some things that aren't a legislative. Essentially, anything that the cooperative and community benefit societies that requires kind of comes to us. But obviously, societies might be under other obligations from elsewhere that aren't part of our remit. So I can see why there might be a few people selecting false there as well.
Lovely. And then the final one, the FCA is the long distant cousin of the FSA. So should we do a drum roll? What is it?
So that one's false.
Are you sure?
But it does confuse me slightly because I started out working for the Financial Services Authority, which became the Financial Conduct Authority. So when it comes to acronyms and the difference of a letter, it does get confusing. It still confuses me now referring to yourselves as the FSA from the short period of time I was at the other FSA when it existed. But yeah,
it was a rogue question, wasn't it, Ian? It was a rogue.
It was like a trick question in there, wasn't it? Testing people.
Thank you everybody for contributing to that, though. There is a point to these things, is just to try to remind you or stick in your head what things are true and what's false, and then hopefully you can go away, make sure you take these key points and share them with the rest of your board so they understand. But thanks very much for taking part, especially on the last one, because that was just for my fun. Okay, Ian, so we're on to compliance and powers.
Yeah, so I touched on this just now. So for societies, non-submission of annual returns and accounts is a criminal offence, and involves us taking the case to the Magistrates Court in England or the Court of Session in Scotland. There are other offences as well. So if there's a document that's required to be submitted to us, or if we demand a document under a certain power and that's not complied with, again, we can take action. Another link to Chapter 9 of the guidance has been posted in the chat, so have a look at that. Chapter 9 lists some of the powers in more detail. I think we can also other things if officers of the societies, that's the directors, for instance, aren't fulfilling their roles, if societies aren't complying with requirements around being audited, if someone knowingly gives a false or inaccurate return, so essentially if someone's deliberately lying to us, we can take action on that. We can also cancel a society's registration. So if we think, for instance, a community benefit society is not conducting its business for the benefit of the community, we could cancel its registration. Likewise, if it's failed to meet a requirement of the Act after we've notified it to do so, so submitting annual returns and accounts, or if it's got too few members, or it's existing for the legal purpose, kind of a general kind of some of the more wraparound type things. If someone essentially lied to us on the registration and it's a sort of fraudulent registration, there's a basis for us to cancel it. So they're the sort of range of powers. Some of them are sort of described as fairly blunt tools, but they're important powers to have. And as I say, we do use them proportionately. So we will contact, we'll ask questions first, but then if someone doesn't answer us, then we will demand answers, and if that's not done, we could then prosecute, we could then cancel. So it would escalate, and I think generally we see societies are sensible in their engagement. It's just important to respond promptly and openly and honestly, and I think that's different to the sort of powers that others have. To pick up on one of the comments of the chat, if you look at the powers that other regulators have to appoint managers, to change the staff, to change the board, to tell an entity to cease carrying on its business activity. There's a whole host of other things where most of our powers go to continued registration or not, or prosecution for what is a criminal offence rather than a rule that we've created, which is why our guidance is guidance, not a set of rules.
Lovely, thanks. Richard, is there any questions in the chat just on this?
No, I think there was just Ian. I think the other Ian was saying that it sounds like regulation to him, which I think I don't know what your response to that is, Ian.
Yeah, so I think I sort of touched on that. I think there's a sort of spectrum. It depends what you're kind of used to and what you're dealing with. I think there'd be a lot of our powers are similar to the powers that the Secretary of State for Business, Energy, Industrial Strategy has over companies. The power to appoint inspectors, or to call special meetings, or to deregister a company, deregister a society, that kind of thing. So they're kind of more equivalent with that, albeit we've got an extra layer of things around the conditions for registration, the co-op bit, or the community benefit society bit. So there could be great debates about where everyone sits on this spectrum, but we don't have the power to make rules. Essentially, we've just got guidance on the legislation.
I think the main thing here as well, and I think it would be from the FCA and the FSA, is to talk to us. So if you're struggling, one of the hardest things from a network management position is when people stop communicating, or they don't come and ask for support and help. Everybody wants to make sure that you're compliant and that you've got enough support as possible. And we can offer advice, and it's up to you locally to action it. But please do talk to us. If things are getting on top of you and you're just getting into a bit of a rut, we will try and offer help as best as possible. And I think the Ian and Kaylee are similar in that sense, but you do have to take the step to talk to us. So I think communication is a big element of this. So just conscious of time, and we're going to be wrapping up shortly, but just wanted everybody on the call to just take a couple of minutes to sort of reflect on this conversation, reflect on your breakout rooms, and going back to the sort of first task that we did around give, gain and goal, what you wanted to take from this session. Just jot down a few things that you might want to do next. So do you want to go and update your board that you've attended this webinar and share the information with them? are there any sort of takeaway messages that you'll take away from tonight? And if so, what are they? What are the kind of, have there been any shocks, any surprises, excuse me? And then if you're still using paper, do you plan to change to the portal? Do you need any extra support and training? So just take a couple of minutes just to think about maybe what you might do next, and then we'll start to wrap the session up. But this bit, sort of like key reflections, is really important, and it's really important to kind of like start to make your next steps, put them down on paper and whatnot. Ian, is there anything that you've taken away from tonight, just in terms of like the chat and, you know, people's comments? Is there anything that you'll take away and you think, oh, that's interesting that they've said that?
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting to listen to reading the questions. There's some really good comments in there as well. I think I should say as well, it's really good that this sort of event is taking place, that these sort of conversations are happening, that points around governance, the stuff around succession planning, all of that sort of stuff is really important, and adding that extra helpful layer to facilitate the running of a society. So I think that's the very fact this is happening, the very fact that so many people have turned up on to spare their evening of their time to participate in this is really I think is a really good sign, and shows real kind of commitment from people. So no, it's been really good from that perspective.
Yeah, I think picking up on that, I mean, definitely my takeaway from the night is just, you know, my volunteers inspire me on a daily basis anyway, but just the energy and enthusiasm and the willingness to learn and the drive to learn is just always so cool to see. And the fact that people have come on this evening, we are really grateful from an FSA perspective as well. And please do keep in touch with any action plans that you're doing over the next couple of months or year. So just going to double check that to see if anybody's thrown in any kind of takeaway messages. So looking to raise succession planning, which is great. Pete, just make sure you ask us if you need any help. So continue to throw stuff in the chat. Really interested to sort of see where you're all going. I know all the network managers will be as well. And one of the things to sort of help you with some of the next steps, so I'm just going to throw it back to Ian, because there's absolutely shed loads of resources, isn't there, Ian?
Yeah, and I think these are being shared afterwards, aren't they? So people don't need to scribble away right this second. But I think the FCA website, our website, has lots of information. I think do save the link to the guidance somewhere. It's a long document, but as I say, you only need to dip in and out of it. There's the Mutuals public register, which you see in the portal. And I think for any inquiries or anything generally, we've got the team's email address, mutual.societies@fca.org.uk. That's staffed by my team all day. So I think send things through to that. That will get you a quicker response than emailing me. So do contact that for any inquiries you have, any issues, that kind of thing.
Lovely. And then from our side of things, there's as I said, there's the network managers. So we've got Richard, who's community-owned network manager. We've got Gareth, that's National League, Michael, who's Premier League, and myself, that's EFL and Women's Game, and then Anwar, that's Fans for Diversity. So any of the network managers the network manager that looks after your area, please do go to them for support, for a chat, a rant. I always like a rant. I always think, you know, it's good and it's cathartic to just get it off your chest, particularly if you're struggling with something. And do go to our YouTube channel. I can see Richard laughing at that, so I assume you're saying the same thing. Please do visit our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, and then you'll get notifications. Follow us on Twitter and use our website. Use that fantastic resource that Nicola has put together, templates. And if you're struggling and you can't find something, please do go to your network manager. Sorry for saying network manager about 5 times there. Just wanted to get across that you've got support. And finally, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure to take you through this hour and a half. We will stay on for 10 minutes just to see if there's any questions. So if you do have any questions, just please stay on. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoy your dinners or your cup of teas or whatever you're going to be going to do. And thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure to see you all.